Hello, everybody. So, welcome. Young Justice Season 4, Part 1 is officially finished. That's it for this part of the season. And we're getting no more episodes for the end of this year until I think around March of next year. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name of that last episode that we just got. It's impossible. I'll just put it up on the screen right now. The structure of Season 4 so far, we're not going to get into spoilers quite yet. We're just going to talk about the general outline of how it went down. And, feel free to comment with your guys' comments officially. Just make sure you put spoiler tags there if you can. Now, Season 4, Part 1 has been separated into 3 arcs. To me, this felt like a real return to form to Season 1. Each of these arcs focuses on certain characters or certain combinations of characters in order to keep things interesting. And then they go down the path of trying to explore each of these character relationships very thoroughly in a manner that hasn't been done before. So that way there's a real focus on each of them. With a few sub-arcs there, bringing back some characters from other arcs in order to finish off what was started in previous arcs, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I, for one, kind of like this format. It made it a little less messy than, say, like Seasons 2, some parts of Season 3, I felt. And I thought that overall what we've been getting so far has been a real return to form that is much akin to all the best parts of Season 1 so far. Although I have to preserve a little bit of judgment. I have a little asterisk here because we haven't seen the whole thing yet, right? But so far, I think what's been put out this season has been impressive. The first arc focuses on Superboy and Miss Martian. The second arc focuses on Artemis/Tigress. And the third arc focuses on Zatanna, who is a character who was never really given that much of a spotlight to shine on her own until this season, which is a very welcome surprise. The performances and the voice actors all returned from their previous seasons, and they turned out a stellar performance. I do know that Greg has posted on Twitter stating that much of the season was recorded through the pandemic, and I just found it incredibly impressive that they were able to record with this level of quality, largely remotely. I think what was said before is that they would have actors go into the studio or record from home. They would keep the actors in their cars, and then they would just walk up to the studio. They would have Jamie Thomason, voice director, as well as Greg and Brandon over the line and just talk to them through the booth while they were calling remotely. So they just worked through the pandemic. I think they had to stop recording at one point, but then they all came back to do that. And it really shows that, in spite of all the setbacks that have been kind of placed on the world, they were able to turn out some really great work. Some of the best voice acting that's actually been done on the show, which is saying a lot considering the caliber of talent they bring in and just the direction. Usually they record in studio, in person together, and that has the added benefit of really allowing them to, get that chemistry together. But I never, at one moment, ever questioned whether they recorded it live or if they recorded it remotely, and it was a welcome surprise to hear that they still did a lot really safely but managed to turn on some really good stuff. So I'm really happy with the way the performances has been going on. I think writing wise, it's kind of hard to gauge exactly where the season's going right now because we haven't seen all of it yet. This last episode provided a few teases in the way that was written. Greg wrote the episode himself this time, and clearly there's things that were set up in that first arc that are finally coming back around that will probably be pushed more to the forefront in the second half. But I want to give my initial thoughts at least. And I do think that out of the 3 arcs that we've been shown so far, my personal favorite probably has been the Artemis arc. I'm a little biased. Artemis has always been one of my favorite characters, I think, just from the way she's presented, just her sort of history and whatnot, and the fact that she didn't have much of a background before this show. Superboy being another one of my favorite characters too from this show, had to share an arc with Miss Martian as well as Beast Boy. So to me, I felt like, it wasn't exploring anything terribly new. It was still great performances by Nolan North, Danica McKellar, Greg Sipes, all turn out great performances of their respective characters. And it was really incredible to get to see some of the Martian culture explored because a lot of that arc takes place off world. But I still think that overall of these 3 arcs initially, Zatanna's arc reigned the weakest, I think, among the weakest. I think partially because that whole arc to me felt really good, I think, when I watched it again in whole. But then having to wait week to week, it wasn't very clear what direction they were trying to take the show. Because her arc in particular is 5 episodes as opposed to the 4 episodes for every other characters. So as a result, parts of it felt stretched. The pacing felt a little odd in a few places. But then once you watch it all together, it comes together quite nicely. So that said, yeah, I think the second arc still reigns supreme in terms of from a writing standpoint as well as a performance standpoint. Artemis does a I was gonna say Artemis, but Stephanie Lemlin does a great job in just that whole bit with what she's given with the material. She has to read novel passages from other old pieces of English literature, classics, Alice in Wonderland being among them, Tale of Two Cities. And every single time she comes on to the booth just to record those bits, you can tell she's putting her all into it. And it just leaves you with such an impact. It leaves you with stuff to think about, and it's just really great. Again, I can't really get too in depth. I think I'm going to get to the spoiler section now. Where largely a lot of the reveals that happened in this season kind of felt that they were placed there for shock value or for setup for stuff later in the second half, which means that even if I were to get heavy into spoilers, it feels like, a lot of that's just set up, and I wouldn't be able to accurately comment on it until I see the whole season. But that said, I'm very satisfied with the way the season's going so far. If you haven't watched Young Justice, what are you doing? Absolutely binge all of it if you can. The whole seasons, all 4 seasons of the show so far are on HBO Max. You can check it out there. Before it was trapped on DC Universe, which made it a bit of a challenge to get to. But if you have like an AT&T or a Comcast, service, I think that it's bundled in there, so you're able to watch it just whenever you can. And if you're a longtime fan of the show, I mean, this has been 2 years of waiting, not as long as like the 6 years before season 3 came out, between 2 and 3, but still quite a long time. I'm really glad it's finally out, and I hope a lot of people are happy with this. If you didn't even know that this season was out, a lot of people just didn't know this season was out when I went to Comic-Con. But being able to tell them how good it was just something I genuinely really enjoyed doing. And so I really hope that you guys all give this show a chance if you haven't already. If you have listened this far and are just wondering what the heck I'm rambling on about, it's a show about the sidekicks who kind of basically get converted into a covert spy operations team of the DC Universe. If this doesn't sound like your cup of tea, if you're not the biggest DC fan, trust me, I think there's something in here for everyone. The character writing is incredible. Just the way they go in depth into all these characters, and the performances are always stellar in this show. It's probably the best plot-driven DC show that they've put out in recent years since the end of the DC animated universe with Paul Dini and everything, and Bruce Timm. So anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Not too much editing going on here. Tomorrow is the last day of Don't Stop December, so I'm going to be recording that right after this video, pretty much. But thank you guys for taking the time and being on this journey with me. So we're almost done. I'm going to keep pumping out content. I think I'm going to be saving the Steins Gate live action video that we're going to be having a little bit of a discussion about all that come the new year. So just look out for that. My camera's still been out of commission, so hopefully these will do and tide you over. But thank you guys if you watched this far. I'll see you guys tomorrow.